Sua. Cold river water strikes your knees as a leather tool bag spins toward the rapids. You can chase it into deeper water, or turn back toward a butchered carcass while daylight and safety disappear together. What happens when an ancient human loses the cutting edges, fire gear, bindings, and wooden equipment that make survival possible? The answer is counterintuitive. The real toolkit was never only the objects inside the bag. The bundle turns once, catches the current, and vanishes. Behind you, blood darkens the reeds around a half-processed animal, and the smell can travel farther than your voice. Your group has meat, but no reliable knife, no scraper, and no easy way to separate joints. Would you risk one life to recover a bag that protects everyone? Modern instinct says the valuable object must be saved. Ancient survival asks a harsher question. Which loss can the group absorb? Fast water can take a swimmer, while a carcass can feed several people only if it is processed before scavengers arrive. You step away from the river and choose the emergency you still have a chance to solve. A rounded stone beside your foot looks too blunt to replace anything. Another nearby has a harder grain and a flatter surface. You strike one against the other, and a thin flake jumps free with an irregular but sharp edge. In a few seconds, a useless-looking rock has become time. Ancient technology did not always depend on carrying a perfect finished tool. It depended on recognizing useful material, understanding how it broke, and producing an acceptable edge under pressure. Losing a knife was dangerous, but losing the knowledge behind the knife was worse. How far back does that kind of knowledge go? At Nyayanga in Kenya, archaeologists found Oldowan tools dating to roughly 3 million years ago. Oldowan is the name for an early stone technology built around cores, flakes, and hammerstones. The survival principle is simple. A controlled blow removes a sharp piece from a larger stone. That edge can open hide, cut tissue, or help reach fat and marrow. Emma Finestone and her colleagues studied where the Nyayanga stone came from. Many toolmakers selected durable material from sources more than 10 kilometers away and carried it into the landscape. The stone was chosen before the immediate problem appeared. A useful core was not merely a rock, it was a package of future cutting edges. Your bag is gone, but the landscape is not empty. You remember a gravel bar upstream and a dark band of stone near a distant slope. You remember which rocks fracture cleanly and which crumble into dull fragments. Could someone without that mental map make the same choice before nightfall? The first flake works, but badly. A companion braces the carcass while you cut around one joint, then another, taking the parts with the highest return. Fat and marrow carry dense energy, while organs spoil quickly. A large carcass is not a victory if predators take it before you can move. The obvious prediction is that a bigger tool would always be better. A heavy chopper can smash bone, and a hand axe can handle broad cutting work. Yet a tiny edge can separate tendon or reach between bone and skin where a larger tool becomes awkward. When time is short, precision can matter more than size. At Revadim in Israel, Flavia Venditti and colleagues examined small flakes made from older pieces of flint. Toolmakers used discarded flakes as new cores and struck tiny fresh edges from them. Microscopic wear and animal residues showed that some of those flakes were used on carcasses. What looked exhausted still held another useful edge. That changes the meaning of a broken tool. An old flake could become raw material again, and a camp floor scattered with stone could function like an emergency supply. Someone who understood fracture saw possibilities where another person saw debris. A few sharp millimeters could separate food from bone before scavengers arrived. If you value evidence-based stories that reconstruct the hardest choices in human survival, liking this video and subscribing will help you keep exploring those hidden decisions. A howl rises beyond the reeds, and another answers from across the valley. The group now has minutes rather than hours. One person cuts tendon, another twists grass fibers, and another checks the ember bundle. No one waits for a perfect replacement kit because each person protects one part of the survival system. Tools were distributed across a group, not only packed into a bag. One person carried stone, another guarded fire, and another remembered water and shelter. Someone knew which wood could become a shaft, while someone else understood how much force bone could take. The kit existed partly in objects and partly in people. You still need distance between your body and a predator. A handheld flake cannot provide it, so the nearest answer is wood. A straight branch can become a club, digging stick, or rough spear after it is selected, stripped, and shaped. Even a crude point can keep teeth one body length farther away. The wooden weapons from Schöningen in Germany reveal how advanced that material could become. Dirk Leder and colleagues documented a large collection of worked wooden artifacts from the famous hunting horizon. The assemblage includes spears, throwing sticks, and other shaped objects showing careful selection, woodworking, maintenance, and reuse. Their exact age continues to be refined, but they come from hundreds of thousands of years ago. That evidence matters because wood usually disappears while stone survives. An archaeologist may find a cutting edge and miss the shaft, handle, basket, cord, or hide container that made it useful. The ancient tool kit was almost certainly larger than the durable pieces left in the ground. Losing a binding or wooden shaft could be as serious as losing stone. The carcass is reduced to what the group can carry. Meat is wrapped in hide and secured with tendon, while the rough wooden point stays near the front. The ember carrier walks in the center, protected from wind and sudden rain. Now movement becomes the next problem. The obvious route leads straight back to camp, but the safest route may be longer. One path crosses open ground, another passes better stone, and a third reaches water without offering shelter. Food, fire, stone, safety, and daylight pull in different directions. The best route rebuilds the most survival capacity before darkness. This is where a transported core becomes valuable. A core is a stone from which several flakes can still be removed. Carrying one good core means carrying multiple possible edges without deciding their final forms in advance. The stone is heavy, but uncertainty is heavier. The group reaches the gravel bar. You reject one stone when it splits along weak lines. Then strike a second that rings under the hammerstone. 2 clean flakes come away. One enters the hide wrap as reserve equipment, while the other stays in your hand. Then the ember bundle begins to smoke less. A predator announces itself, but a dying ember does not. Once the glow disappears, relighting fire may require dry material, time, and working ignition equipment. Do you stop to feed the ember or keep moving toward shelter? The group stops. Dry inner bark is pulled apart while 2 hands shield the bundle from wind. Thin fibers go in first, followed by a twig no thicker than a finger. And slow breath brightens a red point beneath the ash. The fire is not yet aflame, but everyone protects its future. The same logic applies to tools. A glowing coal carries fire-making potential. A stone core carries cutting potential. And a straight branch carries hunting potential. A tendon strip carries binding potential. A knowledgeable group carries the ability to combine them. At Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, Ignacio de la Torre and colleagues found another form of flexibility. They described 27 shaped bone tools dating to about 1.5 million years ago. Many came from the thick limb bones of large animals, including hippopotamuses and elephants. Their makers applied controlled flaking to a material other than stone. Bone did not replace stone everywhere. Stone can hold a sharper edge, while bone behaves differently under force and depends on thickness, freshness, structure, and task. The important point is transfer. When the preferred resource disappears, knowledge can move sideways into another material. At the shelter, a long bone remains after the marrow is opened. One dense fragment can scrape hide, another can wedge into a split branch, and a shoulder blade can serve as a scoop. Not every piece works, and experiment has costs. Yet the carcass now provides both calories and equipment. The group reaches a shallow rock overhang before full darkness. Wind crosses the entrance but does not reach the rear wall. The ember becomes flame, fresh flakes lie beside the fire, and the rough spear rests within reach. By the standards of the evening, the rebuilt kit is enough. What truly disappeared in the river? Several finished tools, hours of labor, and perhaps carefully selected stone from many kilometers away. A good container and dependable bindings may take days to replace. Efficiency has fallen, but the group did not return to zero. Skills, memories, roles, and relationships survived the accident. 2 people who can make a flake are safer than 1 expert carrying every edge. Several ember bundles are safer than 1 flame, and more than 1 route to water is safer than 1 remembered path. Redundancy turns failure from a collapse into a setback. Small caches of stone or dry fuel could reduce the cost of future loss. A group that spreads critical knowledge can absorb bad luck. A group that concentrates everything in 1 object or 1 person becomes fragile. Survival depends on what can be replaced, who can replace it, and how quickly. Archaeology rarely preserves a complete emergency plan. It preserves clues, Transported stone suggests anticipation. Recycled flakes suggest recovery. Worked wood reveals planning. And napped bone reveals material flexibility. Those clues do not prove this exact riverbank scene. They support a broader explanation for how ancient humans survived broken plans. They carried fewer fixed answers and more adaptable ones. They recognized useful shapes before those shapes became tools, reused fragments, and transferred techniques across stone, wood, bone, hide, and fiber. They divided tasks and knowledge across several people. Preparation mattered, but so did the ability to abandon the original plan. Modern life hides this dependency behind finished products. A dull knife is replaced from a drawer, fire arrives from a switch, and water arrives from a pipe. The larger system stores knowledge for you. When that system fails, an object becomes useless if the process behind it was never learned. Ancient humans lived much closer to those processes. They could not stop a river from stealing the bag, rain from killing an ember, or a poor strike from shattering good stone. Their advantage was not complete control. It was recoverability. They could rebuild enough before the next decision arrived. The next human survival mystery begins where that recoverability ends. What happens when a group loses something that cannot be remade in an evening? Such as fire during freezing rain, a migration route, or the person who holds a rare skill? Those losses reveal why teaching, memory, and cooperation became technologies of their own. They also reveal the limits of improvisation. The river is dark now, and the lost bag is far downstream. Beside the shelter, a new flake catches the firelight. A wooden point dries near the wall, and a strip of bone waits to be shaped. The objects are different, but the system is alive. Your tool bag is gone, and now you understand why the real toolkit was never only inside it.